So in Chapter 3, we're going to be taking a look at describing, exploring, and comparing some data. So in the last chapter, we were looking at visualizing data and kind of representing it in some sort of charts and graphs. And now we're going to actually work on finding some statistics or some measures. So a couple symbols to help us out. The number of members in the sample, we're going to use the letter N. So in previous problems, like if you take a look down here, if we took a look at the amount of samples we had, we would just count those numbers up, and we'll get there in a second. All right, so the next one, if we know how many members of a population there are, we're going to use the letter capital N. All right, so this summation symbol, it's kind of a weird symbol. It looks like this. This is actually the Greek capital sigma, but what this means is add them all up. So when you see that symbol, you know that that's what we're going to be doing, is just adding some stuff up. We're not going to work with this a lot, but I'm going to kind of walk through an example where we're going to see this symbol, and when we see that, we're going to remember that we just add stuff up. This one's an important one. The mean for a sample is going to be X bar. So we call it X bar because there's an X with a bar on top of it. The mean of an entire population, we use this weird M, and we call this one, this is mu. So this is the difference. There's two different symbols, so one to indicate when we have a sample and one to indicate when we're working with a population. So we'll come back to those symbols, but we do just want to make ourselves familiar with those. All right, so this one says the number of vehicles passing through a fast food drive-thru during each 60-minute period was recorded, and the results are shown below. So the first thing we want to do is, this is a sample, right? So we're going to calculate the mean for this sample. So what are we going to do with these numbers? First of all, let's count how many we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. There are 20 of these, right? So in this case, N is going to be equal to 20. And how we calculate a mean, a lot of people know this. Mean is pretty much the same thing as what you think of as average. But what you do is you add up all of your x's. We're going to call these our x values in our sample. So these would be our x's. And then we're going to divide that by the number of members in the sample. Now, if we were going to calculate a mean for a population, it's basically the same formula with some slightly different symbols. Add up your x's, and then divide it by, this time rather than a lowercase n, you'll use a capital N. So with our case right here, what we're going to do is we're going to add up all these numbers. So rather than write all of this out, we're going to add up all our x's. I'd like you to take a second. I'm going to pull my calculator out, and I'd like you to go ahead and also add those up. So go ahead and hit pause in the video, add up those numbers, and then let's see what we get. All right, so hopefully when you added up all of these numbers, when I add up all those numbers, I get 597. Now we're going to divide that by the number of items in our sample. That's our N value, right? So we divide that by N, so that's equal to 20. And then when I do 597 divided by 20, that's 29.85. All right, so when you think about that, that's pretty cumbersome with a big data set. If I just wanted to find the average of 5 numbers, that wouldn't be a big deal. But when I have something like 20, it can take a while. So in this class, in statistics this semester, if you take a look at our Moodle site, so here's our Moodle shell. This is for a different course, but yours should look pretty similar. You're going to see at the bottom, there is an Excel files folder. And there's a worksheet located right here. And if you open that worksheet up, this is going to basically do everything that the graphing calculator did for us, but it's going to be much nicer because everything is going to be, sorry, let me resize this. Here is the Excel worksheet. So you can see we've got some tabs along the bottom, but the first one we're going to be working with is this one variable statistics worksheet. So for this problem, I'd like you to go ahead and open up your Excel worksheet and then try this with me. What we're going to do is we're going to enter these values in to the yellow space on our Excel worksheet. So let's take a second. I'm going to hit pause on the video. You go ahead and fill that in. All right, so you can see I've got my values arranged right here. And you can see it gives me the mean right here of 29.85, which is exactly what we got when we did that one by hand. I want to show you another quick trick that's very helpful for this, especially with some of the things we're going to do later. Sometimes it's nice to get this data sorted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of my data. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click the Data tab. And then we are going to sort. And I'm going to sort this. We can pick smallest to largest or largest to smallest. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to go smallest to largest. And you can see right now what this has done is this has sorted the data for me. So again, you can see that when we do this by hand or using Microsoft Excel, it did confirm that it gave us the same thing, which is 29.85. Now, would I always want to use the Excel worksheet? Not necessarily. Sometimes, if I just have 4 data values, I might want to add those up and just divide by 4. So for this problem, it would be 80 plus 75 plus 92 plus 63, and then we're going to divide everything we get by 4. And that's what I'm going to do just using my calculator over here, is we're going to do 80 plus 75 plus 92 plus 63. Now you want to make sure I don't hit divided by 4 at the end right here. We want to hit enter and then divide that number by 4. And we can find that average of these 4 test grades is a 77.5. So this would be equal to 77.5. It says always round the mean 1 decimal place beyond your original data. So if there aren't any decimal places, you'll want to take it 1 out. I'm not going to be super strict about the rounding rule, but you do want to be aware. Make sure you're looking at a question, seeing what it's asked to round to. Okay, the next topic we're going to be taking a look at is the median. The median is just the middle value. So a lot of people are familiar with median, but first of all, the first step for finding the median is you want to arrange the values from least to greatest, or in numerical order. So you can see right here in this first one, these values are already placed in order. This is why sorting would be really nice in the Excel worksheet to find the median, but this is already done for us. So you can see the median of this first data set is 80. So the median is 80. Right there. All right, the second one, you take a look, and when you look at these 2 middle values, there's actually 2 middle values, right? What's the difference between these 2 examples? Well, in our first example, n was 5. The number of data points was 5. That is an odd number, right? Over here in this one, n is even, so we don't really have a true middle value. So if that's the case, what you want to do is you just want to average those 2 middle values up. So we're going to do 75 plus 80 divided by 2. So 75 plus 80, and then make sure you hit enter, and then we're going to divide that by 2. And so we can see that the median of this data set is 77.5. That really is right in the middle between 75 and 80 if you look at it on a number line. So if we're going to summarize this, if n is odd, just find the middle, right? You need to order them from least to greatest, and then find the middle. If n is even, you average the 2 middle values. So let's take a look at our Excel spreadsheet, finding the median. The median is actually located, if you look at your Excel spreadsheet, it's right here. And you can see that the median for our data set is 30. Another nice thing to take a look at is if you look, it says our sample size over here is 20. So if you look, we can just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's an even number of data points. So these are going to be our 2 middle values, are these 2 right here. And then if you average those up, 30 plus 30 is 60. Divided by 2 is still 30. So that's how this comes to a median of 30. So the median for our data set was 30. And that's what it says in Excel. It's located in the 5-number summary. Remember, the mode is the most common value. Okay? So in our data set, this is where we need to really be careful, because there might sometimes be 2 modes. There might be no modes. So if you see a situation like this, 1, 2, 2, and 4, the mode here would be 2 because that shows up most often, right? If you see a set like this, this one has no mode. Okay? But there might be a situation like this, and you see there are actually 2 modes. The modes would be 2 and 3. Okay? Now let's take a look at our data set. So we've got our data set right here. I've entered it into the Excel worksheet, so I'm going to flip over to that. And you can see that the mode is listed right here, but one thing it says is if there are multiple modes, the value above will be the smaller value. You may want to double check to verify your mode. So take a look right here. This is why I sorted my data set. It tells me the mode is 30. I take a look and I count. 30 shows up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, right? You just need to quickly check and make sure no other number shows up 5 times in your data set. I see 28 a lot, but that one only shows up 4 times, so that's not the mode. All the other numbers, I think that's the most common one other than that. So I think we can be confident in our answer that the mode is 30. Now, I just want to show you another example. I'm going to put some data into my Excel worksheet. So I'm going to delete this. And then I'm going to put some data in. So all right, so I've got some data in here. And I take a look, and just as the data set's in there, it tells me the mode is 2. But what we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to sort this data set and make sure that it is actually 2. So I go to data and I sort that. And now I take a look. Okay, so 2 shows up 3 times. But when I take a look down here, 8 also shows up 3 times, right? It doesn't provide me that value because it's only going to list one number as the mode. So in this case, the mode is going to be 2 and 8, and I would need to list both those values. So you need to be careful here and make sure that if you're going to be using the Excel spreadsheet, that you do in fact double check to make sure your mode is correct. In the next video, we're going to take a look at why we need 3 measures of center.